Hello friends, this is HiroJa, the moderator of this channel, and this is F Society RRC Podcast. And we're going to talk about the season premiere of Season 4 of Mr. Robot, the final season. The name of the episode is Unauthorized, and it's 401. So this episode is going to come a little late. I had to really sit with this episode for a bit because there was a lot to unpack and had some different thoughts and feelings about what was going on with the episode. I watched it a couple different times to try to get as much of the details as possible. I have like front to back 3 pages of notes here on the episode. And I caught some things, especially the second time around, and then verified the third time around, that I didn't see the first time around because I was just so absorbed about the show being on and me being back and me being excited that it's here finally, and just the storytelling, the cinematography, and it is an episode that's directed and written by Sam Esmail, so the quality is extremely high. Not that the other episodes are not, but there always seems to be like a special sauce, if you will, when Sam Esmail is directing, and especially directing one of the shows that he's written. And just the opening sequence with what happened to Angela, that really just had many thoughts about it, and just the placement of where all these characters are. It's just, as I spoke about my live reaction, like everyone's just, except for White Rose, everyone's just like, or they're really down in the doldrums and not on their A game, not where they should be. When the most rational person on your team is Mr. Robot, everything's skewed. And given that Elliot is such an unreliable narrator, we have no idea what to believe anymore. What is it we're seeing is real or not real? And back to it. Because our characters are skewed, it puts us, the friend, skewed, and we don't really know our place in this new society that has happened with the 5-9 restoration and what has already happened in the previous seasons, and the status of the different characters that we've come to grow and like and care about. And so putting us off foot, I think, is intentional on the part of Sam Esmail, the director, and what the direction the show is going towards, and the fact that there is kind of a time clock. It brings like this, like a lot of tension, and you get like anxious and anxiety because you have no idea anymore. I mean, not that we had much of an idea what's going on, really, but you have sort of a sense. Genres in television shows, there's certain beats that go along, and they mix and bend and blend, and for the most part you can figure things out or follow along or piece the clues together. But this season, it just is a whole new world. Everything's just different, and that's why I kind of had to sit with it, because I just really didn't know how to put my mind frame, or my mindset, if you will, or frame myself for this particular premiere episode. And this might be the case for the rest of the season, and I'm fine with that. If I'm struggling to figure things out, I think I'm supposed to, and that's what makes for a good television, good art. It's supposed to make you feel things. It's supposed to make you think and guess and doubt yourself and kind of go this way or that way, or have unexpected emotions, or like when you cry, you don't realize why you're crying because you're feeling this emotion that you didn't realize you were going to be feeling. You go in expecting like a comedy, and you're laughing and stuff, and all of a sudden you're crying. Or you're watching them shoot 'em ups and you kind of express your glee or anger or whatever, and then you're crying or laughing a lot, or getting scared. That's what art's supposed to do. And with Mr. Robot being this very tense, very intellectual artwork here that is doing this high wire act, where he's mixing like hard sci-fi, noir, horror, comedy, dark comedy, techno drama, thriller, suspense, all these blending in of these different genres and themes, adventures, heist, criminal cat and mouse going on, detective stuff, arch villains. Like, you have like an arch nemesis really in the show. You have like almost like a super villain. You expecting that or a Bond villain, if you will. Like, that's what White Rose is. She's a real life Bond villain. We always talk about, these technocrats that we have here in America and globally, like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, are these like Bond villains, But White Rose is like, she's really is a Bond villain. And as this Bond villain, she has a master plan. She has henchmen. She's double-crossing, manipulating things, getting, corrupt officials to work her way. She has all this vast resources and networks of people, money, and she may, in fact, actually get away with it. There's no smooth, slick move that Elliot, Mr. Robot, or whatever combination comes out at the end of this that's going to win the day, because the show is so based on some kind of grounded reality. And it's just very fascinating where, kind of like in our own reality, the bad guys win. The good guys don't always prevail. And the lie that is told is the bad guy becomes, the hero. Because, whoever, is the last guy standing is to tell the tale. And that might be, I don't know if that's the end game, but that's the sense I'm getting. Like, I used to have a lot of hope. Like, yes, we're going to win, and that kind of got drained out towards the end of season 3, and then they were going to do some kind of comeback here. But yeah, like I said, I had to sit with this episode premiere. So let's kind of get talking to it, and let's get into this episode. So each of these seasons of Mr. Robot have had some ties to computers in some fashion in their main tagline. So the first season had to do with, the ending of the title, and the ending had to do with like media, the transformation of media, the media codes and stuff. So the file naming had to do with media. And then the second season had to do with encryption, because, they encrypted the data and now they're trying to decrypt it or hide it or get away from it on the second season. The third season is downloading and uploading files. Eventually they had to, in essence, undo what they had done, and there was a transmission of information. So that's what this, the third season was the endings were like basically the file parameters for downloading information, which eventually is what happened when Elliot and Darlene, after getting the information from Dom, undid the 5/9 hack. And also the email information that Moby and Trenton had provided, in essence, or mostly Trenton had provided Elliot, the person that she trusted. And now this season, 401 Unauthorized, is the HTTPS or web code for user error. Another computer connection. We have the first 3 already released if you go to IMDb. And so 401 is actually the HTTPS user error code for being unauthorized. 402, the next episode, is payment required, and 403 is forbidden. So if we're going to go through that mindset, it could potentially be the next, and it's a total of 13 episodes this season. That's 2 more from last season, 3 more from last season, which was, I think, 10 episodes. This is the most. I think it's like 12 for the first one, 11, 10, and now 13. So that means potentially the next episode's names could be 404, not found. 405, method not allowed. 6th episode, not acceptable. Proxy authentication required. Request timeout. 9, conflict. 10, gone. And these are some as I'm reading this, I'm like, there's some dark themes here that could potentially happen. And then the last three, I think, are pretty much like really almost doomsday-ish, if you will. Length required, precondition failed, and quest entity too large. So these are, like I said, these could be the potential naming of these episodes. So, we're starting off with 401 unauthorized, a computer code. Basically, Elliot is off the reservation again. He is trying to basically get back to White Rose, stop her project. But before we get to Elliot, we have the opening sequence with Angela and Price at the bitch where we last saw her. And they're having that conversation about, Angela needed to accept what she had done. Basically, she got conned. Angela's, going through these emotions, and she comes to the point where she's like, she wanted retribution. She wanted Price, basically, who disclosed that he's her father, to help her get retribution, to get back at White Rose for lying at her. And using her and causing the cyber bombing, this terrorist act, and killing all these people. And even though she still believed in White Rose's project, but Price was like, no, you gotta let it go. There's no way. And I thought maybe they had filmed this scene at the end of season 3. It turns out, no, they came back and did this scene. And Angela's persistent. She's insisting on, no, I know how to take her machine away from her. I know what to do, and you can help me do it, or I'm going to do it without you. I don't need your help. And Price is trying to tell her, basically, shut the fuck up. Stop it. And Angela's like a little puzzled, and then she stares at the distance, and basically she sees, what she sees. She sees Dark Army men. And Price is like, beg for forgiveness. Beg that you're not going to do this, and she might let you basically live. I'm trying to protect you. That's why I brought you here, but you can't go down this path. And then I forgot the words that she uttered back to him. Like, she's basically like, this will pass. You're panicking. It's an emotion. You gotta basically turn it off. Be cool. What he said to her at that meeting, where she basically nailed the 2 guys that were part of Kobe's little thing, and setting them up, and Price knew that was going to happen, and he said, you did well, kind of congratulating her. The moment is past, basically. She uttered those words back to him, and she basically told him, I'm not going to run away. She wasn't backing down. And he basically walked away and allowed her to be killed by the Dark Army. And the thing I didn't notice the first time around, and I saw the second time, was he was wearing a wire. He ripped a wire out. And at first I thought the reason why White Rose knew everything was she was listening to his phone, because he answered the phone call to White Rose. But, White Rose made him wear a wire and talk to her to, figure out her state of mind and where she's at. And she said the wrong thing. And, White Rose killed her. Just like that. And, she was, once again, it's an obstacle to her plan with the Washington Township plant. And Price is devastated. He's wrecked. However you feel about the way he handled his relationship with Angela, is obviously he had affection, or at least responsibility for her. He felt responsible for what was going on. And he was angered, he was emotional, he blamed White Rose for recruiting Angela and doing this to her and killing her, and he's like, she was my daughter. And White Rose is very cool as a cucumber, was like, I'm sorry for your loss. And pretty much, the essence of that conversation ended there. And my feelings about Angela's death made me think of, wrote in some of our contributors this website in 1999 called Women in Refrigerators. And it was about, initially started with, God, the Green Lantern's name. Oh, because he's my Green Lantern, and I'm blanking on his name. Oh, I'm just going to put words what his name is. He comes to his home and he finds out that it's not Jon Stewart, it's not Hal Jordan, but it's not Guy Gander. Oh, what is his Green Lantern's name? It's not it was gonna annoy the hell out of me. He comes home. He finds out that his girlfriend has been put in the fridge and was killed by Major Force. And this sparked, and this was written in 1992. I remember this comic as a kid reading this, and it was pretty grim and graphic. Not your typical Green Lantern story, but his story arc for the most part was pretty dark, and I wasn't quite the right age to be reading that, to understand everything going on. But 1999, I remember reading about this in college and the debates around it in comic book world about all the different tropes attributed to women that are not attributed to men, and it sparked this conversation with creators. And it wasn't really a negative towards the writers. It's just, why is it typically that the women are depowered, they get raped, they're killed off in the effort to propel the male character forward. And then when women come back, they're not at the same level when men come back, from being dead, stuff like that. And it's just about discussion about tropes and forms and how we treat certain characters and types of characters and men and female and whole dynamics. And it sparked this whole thing about fridging. That's what it's called, fridging. You kill off a female character to propel a male character. And it's what I kind of felt initially from the first viewing, is the fridging of Angela to propel Elliot, and causing his very dark emotional state where he's not on his A game, because White Rose made it known to his new Grant, his new henchman, that's right there, this female. Do we have her name? Let me see. In my notes. Let's use the Dark Army. What is her name? Well, I'll have it by next episode what her name is. She was like telling him, Elliot needs to be kept on a leash. And White Rose is like, oh, not you too, because he went through this with Grant. She goes, he needs to be taught a lesson about discipline, about not biting your master's hand. And White Rose is like, he has a purpose. His hack basically works. They made the emphasis on dates, like this event with Angela, her death, and the ending of season 3 took place in October. So her death took place in October, and in 2 months' time, around the holidays, which White Rose pointed out, oh, you're gonna have your last Christmas, Mr. Elliot, and then they're gonna terminate him. And we find out the date when we get to Elliot is it starts on December 21st is when this starts. That again, time and tensions at that point with Elliot. But the other thing, when it causes Elliot to be off his game and not be able to do the things he's done before, the other thought that came in my mind was the tragedy of Ophelia from Hamlet. I guess you could say the first woman fridge, where a female character whose death was to propel Hamlet to finally confront his uncle. And I'm not sure that is the case, and I'll explain the reasons why, but these were my initial thoughts. And I don't think it's a completely negative thing. I know not everybody doesn't like the frigid trope. Some people do or accept it. If it's done well, I guess you could say. But those were my initial thoughts when I saw this. And it wasn't like I was disappointed that they did this. I was just intrigued because I expect some form of twist. And we do get that later with Darlene, when we get to Darlene's part of this episode. But my initial first thoughts, like I said, it was fridging, Ophelia, and this is the thing that's gonna propel, I thought initially, until we finally get to Elliot, like in some kind of super vengeance mode. And he is in a super vengeance mode, but is like moody, mopey, dopey, emo. Just not, it knocked him off his game. He is not in his A+ game. And we find that out when he's trying to social engineer hack the lawyer from the Millais attorney, which we find out is Zizong, the cover face, if you will, for White Rose, and the minister, the Chinese minister. That is the name she embodies out in the world to conduct her business in official capacity. And we eventually find out through the social engineering hacking of this lawyer that the next target is the Cyprus National Bank. But the whole process of Elliot like hacking this guy, and it's initially Mr. Robot's voice. Mr. Robot is the one calling the shots here. It's like, okay, they're working together. All right, we're hacking this dude. He's a bad dude. He's into child pedophilia. Elliot has especially disdain for these type of people. And he's basically blackmailing this guy, gets him to get out of his Christmas party office drunk. He turns out he's high on coke. He's actually being followed by the Dark Army. So this again adds this extra layer that we've seen in the past seasons, where we always believe that the Dark Army is like kind of there in the background, and it ratchets up like with season 2, where Darlene, Dom, and homeboy gets shot up in that diner. That, you know, the Dark Army was following them around. And was it because of Santiago giving out that information that Dom relates to her supervisor? Hey, I found them, blah blah blah. And Santiago was like, she found them, and Dark Army operatives were like right there before the police. But now that's just omnipresent. Like, they're almost godlike with the way that the Dark Army is just there. And so 2 Dark Army guys are following this lawyer, tracking him, tailing him. But obviously, they either suspect that Elliot was already social engineering this guy, or they kind of tail certain operatives just on a routine basis. And so he's going through the train station, New York Union Station. Mr. Robot's walking him through, you know, over the cell phone that he gave him, and this USB stick that's supposed to have all this information that eventually Elliot does get. Through Union Station, trying to ditch the Dark Army guys, and, you know, buying some time and stuff like that. And one of the things Elliot told him to do was ditch all his electronics, like his cell phone, his watch, everything he had on him, ditch it at the office, leave it at the office. And it turns out there was one thing that he forgot, which was his badge. And an Elliot that would have been on his game would have said his badge too. Make sure everything. And he would have listed off badge, watch, everything that could easily have your pager, cell phone, tablet, computer. Listen, all his electronics, leave it there. Your shirt you have on, like, because there's wearable clothing now that has electronics, leave it. All of it. Donezo. But Elliot didn't do that. And because Elliot is not on his game, he's interacting with a man that's being tailed by the Dark Army, is basically the lawyer to White Rose to funnel White Rose's money. Basically, this lawyer is, you know, he's a dirtbag, he's a money launderer. And even the conversation that Mr. Robot, and then when it flipped to Elliot, were having with this guy to convince him to go along with this plan, was not the usual social engineering finesse that these two have done in the past. And you can feel it, and the guy can feel it. If your mark can feel that you're not convincing enough, that this is some kind of BS you don't have, you know, yeah, you have the video that he wants back, the incriminating evidence, but he was like negotiating with Elliot, pushing it, and, you know, it was, you could sense it was off. And the fact that Elliot didn't figure out that the guy had his badge on, or didn't tell him to take his badge off, meant the Dark Army found him. And so they had to split off, and they still continue the conversation over the phone. Elliot is still trying to convince this guy to, you know, get this John Garson, this, because he gave up his name. Like, there's this guy named John Garson, but turns out to be a honeypot. And it sounded just false right off the bat, just the way he said it. And the fact that Elliot fell for it, again, shows his thought process and where he's at. And the the one key thing that I felt that was beneficial from the scene was the guy was like, "You're gonna protect me from the Dark Army," and Elliot just paused and didn't say anything. And that's telling, because that's the whole point. And Mr. Robot brought it up to him when they made it to their headquarters. They have headquarters, okay? A secret hideout. Just like there was the F Society hangout, now they have a new hangout, and it's the All Safe hangout. Elliot wants to protect the world. He wants to save the world, if you will. But he can't save anyone, and he hasn't been able to save anyone. He didn't save Angela. He didn't save, Dom in a sense, or himself. Trenton and Moby are dead. Ramon's dead. All his FC Society, kind of underlings that Darlene was helping are dead. Cisco's dead. And Shayla's dead. All these people are dead. And he couldn't save anybody. And he can't save this guy, and this guy knows it. He knows he's donezo. He's done the worst thing you can possibly have. And the gun that he tried to use on Elliot, and Elliot was able to convince him, to use the gun. He used it on himself and kills himself, and Elliot runs to his body. And that's kind of the end of it for that scene, but it just shows that, I guess, in essence, that Elliot has reached a point where he doesn't care about saving people, and he doesn't care about saving the world. And I don't know if this revelation is Elliot realizing he can't save everyone, or save people, or save the world, or he doesn't care to save everyone. He doesn't care to save people, and doesn't care to save the world. He basically just wants to destroy White Rose and the remaining 1% of the 1%. And I think we as an audience have known that Elliot can't save everyone and shouldn't save everyone, but maybe he can save as many as he can and thus save the world. But it was a really dark revelation, and I'm not sure where the show's going to go with this. So, I guess we can continue on with Elliot, and we'll jump into Dom and Darlene here. Elliot, he meets up back with Mr. Robot. They have a nice little board. They have a nice little hangout. They're looking up this John Garsick information, and the fact that they didn't do they found this guy's name with social media, and they found his address from the data they extracted, and they know his cipher's fake. And they didn't reveal how they got the address. I don't know if he went back to that guy's office, or just they were able to figure it out. But the fact they weren't able to figure out that the social media was fake, that the name was fake, they didn't Google it to see any kind of associations, if this name's been used before, who's using it, and what pops up. Again, shows their game being off. Mr. Robot's being the rational person, saying we don't have enough information about this address or this person to go in there, and Elliot's like, we need to go, we don't have much time. It's December 22nd, and the day that they're at, and he said a couple weeks, so that means he's like, by Christmas they're going to be dead. So we might not make it to Christmas or the end of New Year's if White Rose feels that her project's threatened. But the fact that they could stop the project, as soon as the project's wrapped up in this little package, it's on that boat, it's gone. Elliot knows he's dead, and so is Darlene. And so they rush into this. They rush into going to this guy's place, not doing their usual stealth. It took them 2 weeks to get to Lomax. Who knows how long it took them to get to Lomax. We know Angela died in October. It's later revealed to us that, Angela picture her death was sent to him. And so he knows she's dead. Mr. Robot calls on it. He's being too emotional. He's too, Elliot was like, he's kind of spun. He's spun. Even though he says to Darlene, and we'll get to Darlene, and we get admit to her that it was Angela's own fault. He blames himself. He does. He feels responsible, and he wants to get back to right Rose for murdering Angela. So they go to this John Carson's house. It's a honeypot. It was off. The building was empty. It didn't look like a New York building. There wasn't any like foot traffic, people going in and out. There wasn't any signs that people were there. There was only two guys, like a desk guy and another guy that was up again talking to somebody, which I found a little interesting that the mural he was against was like 485. I guess that's when that mural was made. I don't know if that's numbers any significance. You know, these numbers pop up. The guy at the desk didn't really speak to Elliot when he was coming, trying to pretend to be a courier to go to the John Carson's apartment. From the moment the screen, you can see 4 screens, and there's like the lobby outside, and then a hallway, which turns out to be specifically the John Carson's apartment hallway. That's it. And the guy's physical reaction when he said the name, and he confirms, you know, down the elevators are right, like he was kind of like shocked a little bit, taken aback, and then he just went into the mode that he's supposed to. And Ellie didn't register that natural reaction, like there's something off by this guy's reaction. Mr. Robot's like, this must be the most quietest building in Manhattan. This doesn't feel right. The door was open. You know, you can sense when people have been in a space, like someone's lived here or been here, you know, from just a presence, if you will. The things, it was obvious everything was fake. Fake photos, fake this, fake that. It just looked too neat, too not livable, like not like a perfectionist or OCD person. It didn't seem right when you initially see and you walk into the apartment. And we find out it's a honeypot, that there's nothing here. You know, Elliot figures out that John Garsick is a name from a play called No Exit. No Exit is his French play that was about other people are hell, is basically the tagline from it. You see 3 people, they're trapped in hell. They're trapped into a room, and it's 2 females, 1 male, and they basically are supposed to torture each other. The kind of like, if you've seen The Good Place, that was the kind of the idea of The Good Place that the architect had. It comes from No Exit. That they're supposed to torture each other throughout eternity. And there's like an actual doorway where they can leave, but none of them leave. And that's the whole concept of other people are hell and stuff. There was other books on there that I noticed, like The Last of the Mohicans from James Cooper. There was another playwright. It was an Irish playwright. I don't know what his significance is, like if there's any significance, if there's just a book on the shelf. I have a link in the show notes. I didn't notice any of the books on there. There's like these little details in the show, and I'll talk about some of the other details towards the end that, you know, can contribute to the show or kind of take you in and out about the reality of whether or not you're really seeing something or not. But Ellie gets taken by a couple goons. They come up. The guy, he's eating Fruity Pebbles, which I was like, when I saw that box, it's like, you know, when was the last time I had some Fruity Pebbles? And I thought, when was the last time I actually ate cereal? And I was like, it's probably been a decade, because I've been basically oatmeal, pancakes, eggs and bacon, you know, stuff like that, or a fruit bar, or fruit snack, or something like that, or, you know, one of those energy bar things. Or I'll just have like something that's supposed to be for lunch, for breakfast. I was like, the last time I had cereal? Nope. And then I remembered I had Cheerios like 4 years ago maybe. And it's like, when's the last time I had Fruity Pebbles? I was like, it must have been in college when I had Fruity Pebbles. And now I'm like, okay, it's on the groceries list. I need to get Fruity Pebbles. Then I thought, Fruit Loops, Captain Crunch, like all the bad sugary stuff. And then I thought, I can get one of those little boxes where there's like the little variety packs, you know, for chips and stuff. Or you're a kid, you got these chip variety packs, and you always wanted like the Doritos, the Cool Ranch Doritos, but they're always like, there wasn't ever enough. Or if that wasn't it, it's like Lay's, back when Lay's used to be really greasy and bad for you. But it's like, but do they even make those variety boxes for cereal anymore? So I'm gonna have to look into it. I'll come back with you whether or not my cereal escapades come to fruition. But he's listening to an old school iPad, with the, I would say, generation 2 maybe of the iPad. It's like kind of bulky, like maybe 64 gigs or whatever. The wheel and the press play, and which is fitting for his age, Either he's had it for a very long time or secondhand. And he's listening to Be Happy, and Elliot gets taken by these goons. And I thought this might be another concrete situation when Elliot was in the prison where he thought he was getting taken by these men in black, which he had for the first season. They finally grab him when he was having that dream sequence where he wasn't really in prison and was thinking he was just basically in a rehab facility or staying with his mom. But we know that's not the truth. Where he thought concrete was getting poured down his throat, and he's taken back to his apartment, and they're giving him a hot shot. And basically, because Elliot is a heroin addict, and I spoke about this in the live reaction, whatever level of usage, and looks like they were giving the usage that he used before, because he's weaned himself off, and I think it's been months now. 2014 is when the series started, and he had to kick the habit to do the Raspberry Pi exfoliating, and he kicked it, and we're now towards the end of the year of 2015, so maybe about a year or 9 months of him being sober, not being on heroin. And when you go back to your usage, whether it's the same usage level or any level, you can automatically OD because your body considers that thing a toxin. You haven't been using it on a consistent basis. Your body has re-regulated itself. It's kind of purged most of the impurities, and not all of it, depending on what your drug is. And you can go into an instant OD, even though you could have been like, and it seemed like Elliot, even though he kind of fudged it, was a hardcore heroin user. You could, and you've done it for years at a hardcore level, and then you detox, you quit, and you go back to that same level, you can OD. And that's what they were trying to do to him, to make it appear that he just OD'd from drugs that anybody finds him, most likely Darlene, or to find him. That's what happened to him. And Elliot's like, oh, so what Rose is saying, you're working for a terrorist. I know about the Cyprus Bank. I can, as soon as you kill me, automatic messaging goes out. This is what he said to Lomax, but he's like, and then he realizes what they're gonna do to him. He's like, I don't want to go out like this. You're gonna pay for this. I'm not the only one. What, are you listening to me? Say something. And the guy turns around who's doing the heroin is Sam Ismail. And we've seen him before. He was at the prison. I remember that time. He was at the prison in the check-in. He was on the subway. I want to say the subway when Mr. Robot first appeared to Elliot, like talked and interact. And I'm not sure where he was in the 3rd season. But he appears and he says, "Goodbye, friend," which is the tagline for this season. And it's, something we expect that Elliot's going to say to us eventually. We know that he's not talking to his friend. Mr. Robot actually talked to us, and Mr. Robot hates the friend, if you will. It was a long conversation as we were going to the John Carsick doom-failed mission, and he's talking to us like he's not talking to you. Maybe you can give him some sense. I'm filling you in what's going on. That's what you're supposed to do. We kind of balance him out because he's spunning out because of Angela's murder and death. And he ODs. The guys leave. He tries to kick the table. He's trying to save himself. He's trying to kick the phone down. He's basically paralyzed. He can't move. His body's going through shock. And you can see off the distance as he's basically realizing he's dying. His life is flashing before him. He sees the images, the disembodied personalities he has. Mr. Robot, his mother, his younger self off in the corner. They can't believe this is happening. This is how he goes. Of course, he's going to die like this. His mother was, negative. And Elliot, is going to die. He's dying. He's dying. Bold move. You've killed Angela, now you're killing Elliot. What the hell's the rest of the season gonna be? Like, is it gonna be flashbacks like friggin' Lost or Arrow? I mean, what the hell's going on here? they're really killing Elliot. Is someone gonna come in and rescue his ass? Is Sterling gonna come last minute? Is fair? Or is he gonna really die? And I'm like, and then the episode ends, I was like, what? The names start crawling, and then all of a sudden it cuts back, and the men come back in. They give him, I think it's Nova, the shot that's supposed to end, ODs and get people, from the opiate crisis and, heroin and opiate. And just nasal spray, just and basically brings him back out of the OD cycle. And Price walks in. He goes, "Welcome back, Mr. Alderson." And I'm like, what? And I remember him screaming about the black SUV. And I thought maybe whoever was in the SUV was the new White Rose's henchman. And then I thought for a second, maybe it's Tyrell Wellick. Maybe this is power move to end Elliot. He's like kind of done with everything. Maybe he's being forced to do this by the Dark Army. And then I did expect for Price to walk in, because I thought, Price is too much of a coward to really do anything against White Rose. And it turns out I was wrong. And I guess Angela's death was the straw against his back that broke him. And it did break him. You saw his emotional breakdown. I mean, Price is in a precarious position. Even though he's CEO of, Evil Corp, he got there because of White Rose. He had to protect the Washington Township land. He kind of did it because of Angela. White Rose took it as a dig against him because he wasn't moving fast enough on the Congo, and Angela's lawsuit was jeopardizing his power, his project. Even though Price was able to shut that down, in a way. So the killing of Angela and the cyber bombing just as because it was a way of pettiness, as Price said, and the project itself, Price doesn't believe in it. He thinks it's a farce, really, just a deadly farce, and she's psychotic, and he says it so in that conversation. She's psychotic, and that she's just a downright evil person. And don't get me wrong, Price is a pretty freaking evil person himself. He allowed the crash of the economy so he can get his e-coin and raise his corporation to this megalithic level that's never been done before. And he's helped this terrorist for so many decades. So, and the poisoning of these people, one of them happened to be, his lover and the mother of his child, covering that up. He's not Christmas, okay? He's not Father Christmas. He's nothing pure about this dude. But I think the whole killing of Elliot was his way of testing to see the commitment level of Elliot. Because how committed is he to fuck White Rose's shit up? Because when you're at death doors, you're spilling all the beans. And what a better way to do it than actually trying to kind of killing you instead of torturing you. Where torturing you would say anything, but if you're at death's door and you want to get all the stuff off your chest, spit, venomous venom at, the evil person in the face, then what better way than just to kill the dude? And it's, Price is just about as psychotic as, or sociopathic as White Rose. And I think he's going to use Elliot as the cudgel necessary to take White Rose out. We'll see if that works. He might be the thing that gives the capital to Elliot. Who knows? We'll know that by next episode. About payment required. Maybe. Who knows? It was a very unexpected twist there. And like I said, this episode had been so tense and tension, just driven like a wedge this whole time. Starting off with Angela's death, and now, Elliot actually did die. He OD'd, he died. Yeah. So, I'm going to jump to Dom. Dom's going through it. She's paranoid. She is locked in her room like Hoarder, and the government's out to get her, and it's true. Like the government in essence is out to get her. A fragment of the government, the Dark Army's out to get her. She's a complete and utter wreck. She's staying at her mom's place, crashing there. So if everything took place in October, it's been a couple months. And she's been hoarding herself out there, not washing herself, not cleaning, nothing. She's taking down license plate numbers. She's pulling out guns on people. In this case, the handyman is here to redo her mother's bathroom, and she's hiding her paranoia from her mother. Her mother is oblivious. I'm surprised the guy didn't say anything, but then again, gun culture is a strange thing in America where, you don't kind of talk about it all the time. If your job is going into people's homes, you might have an expectation that a gun is going to get pulled on you unexpectedly, or someone's going to have a gun on you or on their hip simply because they don't trust you. You're coming into their home. I've had that experience when I've had to go for jobs for going into people's homes. It's just a thing. For those who are not from America, it is a thing. You knock on the door. We have these things, I don't know if they're global, in America, like the screen door, but it's a metal gate where you can see out if you're in the house, the owner of the home, but you, the visitor, cannot see in. All you can see is a silhouette of a person. And sometimes you can tell just from experience, male, female, height, tight, weight, you can see that much. And whether or not they actually, the position of their hands, and whether or not they have a gun on their hip and stuff. And sometimes they open the door and say, I have a firearm with me. It's like, okay, that's your right. I'm stating my business. These are my credentials. This is the reason why I'm here. You called. If you need to go back in the house to verify the information, I'll wait right here, 4 feet from your door. You can see where I'm waiting right here, and verify everything. And sometimes they give the qualifications. So, my wife didn't tell me. I mean, she did say something, but I didn't realize it was today. Come on in, and stuff like that. So, yeah. So at one hand, I'm not surprised he didn't say anything, but on the other hand, I was like, I think he kind of read the room as like, yeah, I'm not. You're gonna leave me here with her. If you were gonna leave me here with her, I would have been like, nah, I can come back at a different time, But yeah, so Dom is, she's going through it. She's rightfully paranoid. Her mom tries to set her up with this woman named Janice. Turns out Janice is a mole for the Dark Army that's wormed her way into her mother's life. And if Dom does not go back into the FBI and tell her side of the story about the Santiago situation, they're basically going to wipe out her family. And Dom's like, if you kill my mother, I'm going to kill you. He tells this to woman Janice, who is a taxidermist, and I believe that's her real job. It's interesting, like, so far these assassins or whatever that the Dark Army has do have legitimate jobs. Irvin is a used car dealer salesman. Thinking we'll find out what Leon's is soon enough. But Janice, I believe, is a legitimate taxidermist who has a taxidermy place in office and does their taxidermy, but she also kills people for the Dark Army on the side. And the white vans that Dom has been noticing are in fact probably Dark Army vans, but they could also be the FBI vans, or they could be both, FBI, Dark Army vans. So Dom has to go back into the FBI and come up with some bullshit story to cover up the Santiago situation, because she is the FBI mole now. And it's breaking her. She's a good person, but she doesn't want her mother to be gutted from mouth to cunt, as Janice says, and she knows she cannot stop the Dark Army from killing everybody she loves. Even if she were to tell the FBI within moments, even if she were to tell like the right FBI agents, they're not the Dark Army person, the moment she entered the building and the Dark Army suspected that she's not talking to the right people, bodies have been dropped. So she's not sleeping, she's paranoid, she's devastated, she's wrecked, and she's now a turned FBI agent. All her principles have been turned asunder, skewed, if you will, because of her relationship with Darlene, because of this case, because of her trying to do the right thing, she ended up getting screwed. And I kind of want, like I said in my live action, I kind of want Dom to be like John Wicket, you know, where we typically see our heroes in all these, you know, cop propaganda movies that, you know, she goes and she blasts everybody, but that's not what's going to happen. She's going to have to lay low, hang in there, do what she's supposed to do for the Dark Army, and maybe somehow get out of this alive. If anybody's going to get out alive, I hope it's Dom. I hope it's Dom in our family, because she doesn't deserve this. She doesn't deserve this at all. But then again, I said it in my live action, it's going to, in my season prediction, it's going to be bloody. Nobody's getting out of this alive. But I can always hope. That's my little hope is Dom. My little hope in the show is things are going to turn out great for Dom. So Darlene's going through it. She's a drug user just like her brother. It was kind of obvious the way, you know, second season, the way she kind of partied and stuff like that. But it seems like she wasn't full-on junkie. She used or did stuff. But now she's coking out, cokehead, being a bit paranoid, seeing things. Because she went to Elliot, she's been trying to reach him. She says she saw Angela. She saw Angela in the same bathrobe out near the homeless shelter. She's been checking the homeless shelters looking for Angela because Angela's not in her apartment. They saw surveillance of her getting picked up, but maybe she's thinking Angela escaped. She got freed. Elliot knows the truth. He knows that Angela is dead. I don't know. Is Elliot. He hasn't told Darlene that Angela's dead, which he should have told her. There's really no fundamental reason at this point for him not to tell Darlene. And he thinks he's protecting Darlene. He thinks he's protecting people when in fact he's hurting them by his actions. And she's calling him out on his bullshit. She really doesn't like it when he switches to the Mr. Robot personality. She shrinks away from it. She always has. She knows when he's Mr. Robot. She knows it. After all, she's his sister, so she knows when he changes. He can be angry and be a withdrawal himself, and she also doesn't like it when he's like that. But she's like, she's calling him on his bullshit. You shut it down. This is what you do when shit basically gets real. You do this, and she's tired of it. She storms off. She's staying at Angela's place. This is what she does because Darlene's kind of homeless. She's just bouncing from place to place. She's not an FBI informant really anymore. So she's not at that safe house, or if she's supposed to be, she hasn't been. And I guess they're going to have a flashback to some of that explanation of how she's no longer a confidential informant. But, she's partying, she's at Angela's house. Angela has all those faces of all the people that died during the cyber bombings. People are going through Angela's stuff. People are drinking, talking about flat earther stuff. She's doing coke, doing pills. She's freaking out. People are talking mad shit about Angela. She's kicking everybody out. And she grabs the one thing that's been, a bond between her and Angela. I mean, they might not have had the strongest of friendships, but they did have a bit of a bond. Some of it had to do with Elliot, shared childhood, but they balleted together. They danced together every morning. They hung out for a little bit. They had a bit of a relationship. And then, Darlene scooped Angela into our society and got her to plant that femtocell. She realizes that Angela kind of betrayed her and Elliot with helping with Stage 2 and the cyber bombing attack. But she was there with Angela when Angela collapsed and realized what Angela had done. She tried to help Angela get herself pieced back together, trying to get to Elliot to get to Angela to help her. She doesn't believe Elliot in the guilt that Angela did this all to herself. Some of it was Angela's actions. I mean, she did participate,
not only in F Society, but the Dark Army, and helping with the Stage 2. She knew that there was going to be bombing in all those buildings. She believed Irvin that there was an evacuation plan, but she should have known better. She should have known who she was dealing with, that there was no evacuation plan, and that shit was going down, and that, you know, she's responsible for the deaths of thousands of people. So Darlene is spiraling out. I mean, she lost Angela, she lost Cisco, you know, blowing up in front of her. She betrayed Dom to the Dark Army. Elliot is cutting himself off her again. So she's, you know, Trenton and Mulvey are gone. She has nobody. She has, you know, the one person she thought she had, Elliot, is gone from her. He's shutting her out again, and so she's, you know, lost. And I think a lost Darlene is a very dangerous Darlene, because she's still a very skillful person, and she may go rogue on her own and, you know, Ronin style, and just start whooping it up against the Dark Army willy-nilly and end up getting herself killed, because Elliot can't save her. And they're both in these dark places. We have Elliot, Angela Price, Dom, Darlene, Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot is the most rational person right now, because I guess he's the most rational aspect of Elliot right now. That's strange. That's scary. That's just scary to me, where Mr. Robot, Mr. Extreme, who thought up to Stage 2, but still helped Elliot save that one building. And maybe kind of hiding the fact that there were other buildings going off. Also, you know, backing up the encryptions just in case, if you will, if these go awry. You know, he's you know, hopeful, but very vengeful, goddish kind of a way. And he's the most rational person right now on Team Elliot. Wow. Veer didn't show up. Don't know what that means. I don't know, because I think we're supposed to think when the assistant spoke to White Rose about keeping Elliot on a leash, and White Rose replied, well, let's send him a message of like understanding, if you will, that he's gonna get. And we're supposed to think that it was the picture of Angela dying, or death, if you will, but it might be Veer. Veer might be the message from the past, if you will, a hint of what could potentially happen to Elliot. And he just hasn't popped up yet. I don't know where Veer plays in this skewed world. Speaking of skewed, there's always these little things behind the scenes of Mr. Robot. One, Flipper's gone again. He's with the landlord. Very understanding landlord. My understanding of what I've heard for all my life about New York landlords, that shouldn't be the case. QRT, don't see it in Angela's apartment. The fish is gone, but I did see what looked like QRT, at least a motif of him, on the mural of that building in John Garsick. It was very oceanic, if you will. And right outside of it, it looked like a QRT mural out there on that building. E-coin. When the lawyer popped out of the taxi cab that he was taking, E-coin is the basically the currency now, and this is with the fare. It was like $2.74, 50 cents extra, no toll, state charge, imperial surcharge. I guess it's from the city, service fee, total fare, $27.25, or E-coin. Select payment type, print receipt, yes or no, cash, E-coin, or credit card. You can go, scan, store, again, E-coin. So I'm thinking like what we see with gases now, like gas has gone up again, and it's been this way since Dodd-Frank with the debit credit card transaction fees, if you will, where smaller merchants will charge you a fee if you don't spend like $5 or $10, or like AMP, which is a gas chain here in the States, mostly West Coast, I think, automatically 35 cents.
So the concept of discount using two different payment systems is not new, but it'll be interesting to see, because we already see it with like gas stations and merchants already in the real world, of what the eCoin discount is. Like, how significant is it? Is it just like a few dollars or a few cents here and there, or is it like half? Like, if he uses eCoin, is he only paying half of that $27.25, or maybe it's like $8 off or $10 off? It could be quite a wide margin because you want people to use eCoin, and it might be a artificial way of inflating eCoin in some sense. I'm not very strong in the economics here, but these are some of the things I noticed throughout the episode. I know they're still playing the ARG game, which has occurred each season, and so there might be some other background things that might, play a part in that game, or just other little hints that might play the part for the rest of the season. But whew. This season premiere, man, it was so tense and so skewed. I have no idea where we're gonna go from here. I really don't. Another thought popped up in my head as we're wrapping up is that maybe Angela, the whole fridging of her, might be Price's motivation, which is, given that Price is so freaking evil, that might sour it a bit for me. But I'm gonna give like I said, it's not meant to be. The criticism is not meant to be negative. It's just, people are kind of tired of the fridging trope. But if Angela's somehow still here because of the wacky, timey, wonky, White Rose bomb villain, Washington Township plant, androids, multiple time strings, multiple versus thing, and she's here and Donald's seeing her, that would change things for me about the opinion about that opening part of it. Not just being like so hesitant about it, but killing two of your main characters in the first episode. Oh wow. But yeah, so that's it. Those are my thoughts, my observations, my what have yous. Hopefully the next episode will not be as intense and I can get this up a little bit quicker. I'm not sitting on it so much. I won't have so many feelings, get back in the groove of things. But then again, it is Mr. Robot, so who knows. And I'll keep you updated on the whole Zero escapade. But my name is HiroJa Shive. I've been the moderator of this channel. This is F Society IRC Podcast, the Mr. Robot Show, and logging off for now.